Have you ever heard of a house so terrifying that people living nearby refuse to even say its address out loud? A house that has stood abandoned for more than a century. A place where police reports, unexplained disappearances, and countless eyewitness accounts have blurred the line between reality and nightmare. Some say the house is cursed. Others believe something far older than the house itself still lives inside. Over the years, dozens of thrill seekers, paranormal investigators, and curious explorers crossed its rusted front gate. Some came back, changed forever. Others were never seen again. Today, we are uncovering one of America's most chilling haunted house legends. Every detail has been pieced together from local folklore, abandoned property records, eyewitness claims, and stories passed down through generations. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, by the time this story ends, you may never look at an abandoned house the same way again. It all began on an unusually cold October evening in 1998, when investigative journalist Daniel Carter received an anonymous envelope with no return address. Inside was a single faded photograph of a massive Victorian mansion hidden deep within an overgrown forest somewhere in the American Midwest. Written across the back of the photograph were only 7 words: "Find this house before it finds you." Daniel laughed at first. After nearly 15 years of reporting strange stories across the United States, he had received hundreds of anonymous tips. Most turned out to be nothing more than local rumors, but something about this photograph felt different. The image itself appeared decades old. The edges were burned. The mansion's windows reflected no sunlight despite the clear daytime sky. And standing on the second-floor balcony was what appeared to be a person. Except when Daniel enlarged the image under his office scanner, he realized it wasn't a person at all. It had no face, no eyes, no visible features, just a perfectly dark silhouette staring directly toward the camera. His curiosity quickly overcame his skepticism. After tracing old county records, Daniel discovered that the mansion actually existed, hidden nearly 20 miles from the nearest town. Official maps simply identified the location as an abandoned private property. No owner, no recent tax records, no maintenance history, almost as if the place had disappeared from government records decades earlier. When Daniel contacted local residents, their reactions were strangely similar. Most refused to discuss the mansion. Several immediately hung up the phone. An elderly woman quietly whispered, "You don't investigate that house. It investigates you." Daniel assumed fear and superstition had transformed ordinary events into exaggerated ghost stories. He had heard similar warnings before. He decided to drive alone. On October 29th, just before sunset, Daniel followed an old gravel road leading into one of the oldest forests in the region. The deeper he drove, the quieter everything became. Birdsong disappeared. Even insects seemed absent. His GPS suddenly lost signal. His cell phone displayed full battery only moments earlier. Now it was completely dead. The forest itself seemed unnaturally still. Finally, after nearly an hour, he saw it, the mansion, towering above the trees like a forgotten monument. Its black wooden walls were scarred by time. Broken stained glass windows reflected the fading sunlight like cracked mirrors. Massive oak trees surrounded the property. Their twisted branches stretched over the roof like skeletal fingers. The iron front gate hung partially open. Its rusted hinges moved slowly, despite the complete absence of wind. Daniel parked his truck outside the entrance. As soon as he stepped through the gate, he noticed something impossible. The temperature dropped dramatically. His breath became visible. It was nearly 20 degrees colder inside than outside. He checked his portable thermometer, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Outside the gate, 64. No scientific explanation immediately came to mind. He switched on his camera. This is Daniel Carter, reporting from an abandoned Victorian mansion believed to date back to the late 19th century. The recording continued normally for several minutes. He documented collapsed porches, broken statues, a dry fountain. Then, his camera suddenly shut itself off. Fresh batteries, fully charged, completely dead. Confused, Daniel reached the front door. It slowly creaked open before he even touched it. No wind, no visible movement, just an old wooden door opening inch by inch. The entrance hall was covered in thick dust, yet scattered across the floor were fresh footprints, bare human footprints, leading deeper into the house, only inward, none coming back. Daniel carefully followed them. The silence became overwhelming. Every footstep echoed far longer than it should have. As he entered what appeared to be the dining room, he noticed dozens of family portraits still hanging on the walls. Every face had been scratched away, every single one, except one portrait, a little girl wearing a white dress. She appeared to be around 8 years old. Unlike every other painting, her face remained untouched. Her expression wasn't smiling, nor frightened. She simply stared forward, almost waiting. Daniel photographed the portrait. Moments later, he reviewed the image. The painting appeared normal, but in the reflection of the cracked glass, someone was standing behind him. He spun around instantly. Nothing. The room remained empty. He looked back at the camera. The figure was still there, tall, thin, motionless, standing less than 6 feet behind him. When he looked up again, nothing. He convinced himself it was merely reflected light, an optical illusion, yet a growing sense of unease settled over him. The deeper he explored, the stranger the mansion became.
Hallways seemed longer than before. Doors led the rooms that hadn't existed on earlier floor plans. One staircase somehow returned him to the same hallway, no matter which direction he climbed. His handwritten notes no longer matched the building's layout. It was as though the mansion itself was changing. Then came the sound. A child's laughter. Soft, distant, echoing somewhere above. Daniel immediately climbed toward the second floor. The laughter stopped. Every bedroom was empty. Dust covered every surface, except one room. The door stood slightly open. Inside sat a small wooden rocking horse. It was gently moving, back and forth, back and forth. There was no breeze, no broken windows nearby, only silence. On the wall behind the toy, someone had written a single sentence in faded black paint. She never wanted visitors. Daniel felt an overwhelming urge to leave. Years of investigative journalism had taught him one dangerous habit. Curiosity often defeated fear. He slowly raised his flashlight. Its beam struck the opening. Nothing. Just old coats hanging from rusted hooks. A cracked suitcase. Several broken toys scattered across the wooden floor. Daniel exhaled. He had almost convinced himself that the whisper had been his imagination. Then every coat inside the closet began swinging at the exact same moment. Not gently, violently, as though invisible hands were pushing each one. The flashlight flickered once, twice, 3 times. When the light stabilized, the closet was empty. The coats, the suitcase, the toys, everything had vanished. Only one object remained, a small leather-bound journal resting neatly in the the center of the floor. Daniel stepped closer. Its cover was covered with dust, except for a perfectly clean handprint. Someone had touched it recently, very recently. He carefully picked it up. The leather felt strangely warm. Inside, the first page read, "Property of Eleanor Whitmore, October 17th, 1912. Daniel immediately recognized the name. Earlier that morning, while searching county archives, he'd found records showing that the Whitmore family owned the mansion until the winter of 1912. After that, every official document simply stopped. No death certificates, no property transfers, no newspaper obituary. It was as if the entire family had disappeared from history overnight. His hands trembled as he continued reading. Father says the house is alive. Mother tells me never to answer when someone calls my name after sunset. She says it isn't really my name they're calling. Daniel frowned. The next pages became increasingly disturbing. The walls move at night. I counted 12 windows yesterday. Today there are 14. Father nailed shut the basement door. He says something came home with grandfather from the forest. Daniel paused. His flashlight dimmed again. Not because of weak batteries. The beam itself seemed weaker, as if something around him was swallowing the light.
He continued reading. Yesterday, Mother disappeared. Father searched every room. Then we heard her crying from inside the walls. Daniel froze. A faint sound drifted across the bedroom. Someone was crying. Soft, slow, heartbroken. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from somewhere inside the walls. He placed his hand against the wallpaper. The crying immediately stopped. Then, a tiny voice whispered through the wood. "Please don't leave me." Daniel jerked his hand away. The voice belonged to a child. He stepped backward. The bedroom door suddenly swung open by itself. The hallway beyond was completely dark. His flashlight could barely reach 5 feet ahead. Yet, at the far end, he saw movement. Someone slowly crossed the hallway. Too tall to be a child, too thin to be normal. Its arms nearly reached its knees. Its head bent unnaturally to one side. It disappeared around the corner without making a single sound. Daniel's breathing became rapid. He grabbed his camera, hoping to capture evidence. The battery indicator suddenly showed full power again. Impossible. Only minutes earlier it had been completely dead. He switched it on. The hallway appeared empty through the camera screen. He lowered it. Nothing. He raised it again. The tall figure now stood halfway down the corridor, perfectly still, facing him. Daniel lowered the camera. The hallway was empty again. Raised it. Closer. Lowered it. Nothing. Raised it one final time. The figure now filled almost the entire screen. Its face had no eyes, only smooth gray skin stretched tightly across its skull. Where its mouth should be, hundreds of tiny teeth slowly opened vertically, not horizontally, like a deep crack splitting open through flesh. Daniel screamed. He dropped the camera. The screen shattered against the wooden floor. Instantly, every door along the hallway slammed shut, one after another. Bang! 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 The entire mansion echoed with deafening force. Dust poured from the ceiling. The crying inside the walls became louder. Children's voices joined in, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all whispering the same sentence, "Don't let him find us." Daniel ran. He no longer cared about collecting evidence. He sprinted through twisting hallways, desperately searching for the staircase. But every corridor led somewhere unfamiliar. The mansion had changed again. Rooms appeared where none had existed before. Windows overlooked forests that should have been behind solid walls. One room contained furniture covered in fresh white sheets. Another looked completely untouched, as though someone had been living there only hours earlier. A fireplace burned brightly, despite having no wood. An old grandfather clock ticked normally. 3:17. Daniel checked his wristwatch. 8:48 p.m. Neither time made sense. Then he noticed family photographs sitting on a nearby table. The Whitmore family. Father, mother, little Eleanor. But standing behind them was the same impossibly tall figure, present in every photograph, watching, waiting, always just behind the family, as though it had always been there. Daniel's blood ran cold. This wasn't haunting the house, it had been haunting the family. Suddenly, another photograph caught his eye. He picked it up. It showed a group of police officers standing outside the mansion. The picture was clearly taken decades later, perhaps the 1950s. Every officer smiled toward the camera, except one. He stared directly toward an upstairs window. Daniel followed his gaze. There, standing behind the glass, was Daniel himself, wearing the same jacket, holding the same flashlight. The photograph had been taken 40 years before he was born. His hands shook uncontrollably. He dropped the picture. "No," he whispered. "That's impossible." A voice behind him quietly answered, "Not here." Daniel spun around. An elderly woman stood only a few feet away. Her gray hair reached her waist. She wore an old-fashioned black dress stained with dust. Her face looked painfully familiar. It took Daniel several terrifying seconds to realize why. She was the little girl from the portrait, only now she had grown old. Without making a sound, she raised one trembling finger toward the floor beneath Daniel's feet. "He's under the house," she whispered, "and he's awake."